So let's do The Substance, which is the new film out this week that we've had a lot of emails in about already, and it is the kind of film that if you have seen, you will definitely have a reaction to. If you don't know what The Substance is a satirical body horror movie directed by Coralie Farge, who previously made a film called Revenge. It stars Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, and Dennis Quaid, and actually quite a tight, a small cast movie with actually very little dialogue in it. The Substance is essentially about aging, she's only 50, but aging actor Elizabeth Sparkle, played by Demi Moore, who is turning 50, and her successful career is kind of behind her. She's kind of past her best. I think she won an Oscar in the past, but she has this sort of fitness channel, which is very glamorous. However, we discover very early on in the movie that TV show is getting the axe because she, God forbid, she's hit 50, and that is the death knell for women in the TV industry. And this news is delivered to us, by the way, in a fantastic introduction by Dennis Quaid's character, who is the most obnoxious, over-the-top caricature, deliberately so.
Also named Harvey, which I wonder was interesting.
Yes, I see that. Yeah. And he wears these god-awful, gaudy satin suits, and we're introduced to him delivering this news up close to the camera while he urinates and talks in the camera at the same time. It's the most disgusting introduction to a character.
They do Dennis Quaid a rough time with
how he loves it, though. He's really game for it. So anyway, Elizabeth, through various plot circumstances, discovers this procedure called The Substance, this mysterious thing that is you can arrange for and be delivered to, and you can pick up the substance which promises to offer you a new, renewed vitality in life by creating a newer, younger version of yourself. And it's all very mysterious, but the deal is if you can create a new, younger version of yourself, literally like a duplication, with the one deal that, of course, it is that you are still sharing the same life. So 7 days for the new version of yourself and 7 days for the old version. And there is this kind of Faustian pact inherent in this product and this promise, and it's called The Substance.
And the two are one.
The two are one. That's a reminder.
It's not different. It's the same person.
It's the same person. You may be able to grow this clone out of you, and it might be younger and glamorous. And of course, it's played by Margaret Qualley. But you are one.
Consciousness
you must
is like transferred
share the time. Exactly. Yeah, consciousness is not transferred. You're two independent minds, but you share the same soul and body. I won't reveal any more, but it is as I said, a satirical body horror movie with overtones of Kubrick, Lynch, David Cronenberg, and it's an experience. It is an experience. James, why don't you give us your thoughts first?
Firstly, I had to walk out.
Of course, I bet.
I saw it last night, so it's very fresh. I walked out the cinema and I did not feel good. I was like, I want to go home. Yeah. But yeah, we had a walk out, and the walk out was, I would say, before stuff got really crazy. I was like, if you had stayed, this was like sort of as the the milk really starts to turn off. Yeah. But actually, you had no idea what was coming in the first act.
And also, the way that the movie turns is like an extended 40 minutes, I'd say.
Yeah. So, it's almost a film of two halves, actually, you could say. The Substance. I had so much fun in The Substance, despite being absolutely disgusted and completely grossed out, but I thought it was really interesting and a very challenging watch. I'd say the first half I enjoyed more, but nonetheless, it was brilliant and really interestingly shot. I think the performances are brilliant. I think what it has to say about that specific issue. Here's the thing. I think people going to watch this film are not going to sit there scratching their head throughout the whole film going, I wonder what the moral of this story is. Like, it's very obvious for the entire time what this film's trying to say. But the grotesqueness is so brilliantly well done. You almost have to tip your hat to it for executing it so brilliantly. It reminds me actually of when I saw In a Violent Nature a couple of months ago, which was also shockingly grotesque on screen, but nonetheless I was almost like, very well done for what you've pulled off here. I think the special effects and the practical effects and the design of everything that goes on later, I thought was just brilliantly horrifying. I don't think you're going to wonder for the entire film what's this about, but nonetheless it's really brilliant, challenging, fun, and I don't think it's for everyone. I think some people might find it a difficult watch, but it made me aware. So I went to see a screening last week with a friend of mine, and it made me realize that when we're invited to these screenings, we're not actually ever told the rating or the content of the movie. Obviously, you're sent a trailer, and I sat quite close to the front, so I wasn't aware of anybody leaving. But
I was a bit concerned about my friend was fine actually, but I was suddenly aware that I had no idea whether or not my friend was okay with the kind of content that we were watching.
Yeah.
Right, they were fine with it. We didn't have. I'm pretty sure we had walkouts, but we definitely had a scream at one point, which was great. Kind of something is revealed in a mirror, and somebody just went. Here's my thing with the
sorry, just quickly. I think like just towards the very end, I think I took the film to be more serious, and I think the film becomes ever so slightly a parody of itself towards the end. I think it's very much intending to do that, and it's part of the fun. But I think I was like, oh, this isn't as serious of a film that I originally took it for when I first saw it.
Here's my thing with Substance, which is that as a visceral experience, it's what a crowning achievement. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That last 40 minutes is grotesque. And I was, we've seen a lot of films and this really shocked me. And the cinema that I saw it in was so loud in terms of the audio. Every bone crack, every bodily fluid was right in my ear. And my friend and I were really squirming in our seats. And the film ended and we sat in silence. And we waited for the credits to roll, and we got up and we walked out. We looked at each other and we just hugged each other because we needed some warmth.
You just know everything's going to be okay.
So my thing, as a visceral experience, well done it, and that is the primary thing for enjoying this film. If it's not your kind of, if you don't like grotesqueness, if you don't like body horror, stay away. The thing that stops me from really giving it a lot of praise is that, ironically, for a film called The Substance, is that the satire is limited and basic. I find
it's so consistent for a while, isn't it? It stays at a. Oh, sorry.
Yes, so the satire is clearly introduced quite early on. We know it's about body image. We know it's about very interesting things, which is about chauvinism and also women internalizing their hatred for other women as well, and ageism and all that stuff's great. But the film is 2 hours 20, which goes very quickly, but. There is a point where I'm like, the film is not offering me any more in terms of satire, but it's offering me so much in visceral stuff, which is great, but there's a limit to that. I would have loved, when the film gets really crazy towards the end, to not only have been reacting viscerally to what's happening on screen, but to also have been thinking, this is so brilliant because of the satirical point it's trying to make. For me, it was an imbalance, and I was therefore, it kind of put a ceiling on the whole experience for me. All the things, like I said, are great. Demi Moore, I've never actually seen a Demi Moore film. I've seen her in 2 films. I've seen her in Margin Call, where everyone's in it, and I've seen her in A Few Good Men. Yeah. But I've not seen Ghost. I've not seen.
Ghost is great.
I mean, she also hasn't really been in a lot of films recently.
Which I think is like a nice bit of irony for this film.
Oh, that's true, actually. And so an actor late in her career, and she's very good in it. Don't get me wrong. She's absolutely game for what this film asked her to do. Similarly, Margaret Qualley is really good, and from the directing point of view, I do like that. The film, I think, has this clever switcheroo, which is like in the first half, it really engages in this like male gazy leeriness. I mean, there are so many shots of Margaret Qualley's body and her ass and her crotch, But obviously, it's because thankfully it's from a female film director, so it's not coming off as distasteful. It's all part of the satire, and what I think that does is quite cleverly kind of. Mistakenly whet the audience's palate for a kind of appetite that they think they're going to get, and then the way that it whets an audience's appetite for the kind of body imagery that it wants to see, and then it flips that in the second half and responds to that in a brilliant way. I just came away thinking the satire was lacking for me, and another thing to the film's credit is that there is a lot of. A lot of sadness comes through it. A lot of loneliness. It's a very small cast.
There are no friends in this film.
There are no friends. It's basically just the 3 of them and a couple of people coming in and out. And the dialogue is also sparse. It's mainly a montage of very crazy things happening.
It's also very surreal, and there's a lot of dream logic. And like within that, nothing ever really said ever feels like it's taking place. Really. Yeah. So it's kind of Black Swan-esque in a way.
But and as a result, the film has this kind of sadness, this loneliness, which works. Back to the satirical point, though, what I found is that when the film does stop its craziness to then have a scene of dialogue, that's for me when the film should really hang. The film hangs on the dialogue scenes for it to like deliver its satire and to make a point between the craziness and to substantiate, no pun intended, the craziness. However, when the dialogue scenes actually arrive, they're so pointed and on the nose and quite like one-dimensional. Like there's her interaction with her neighbor, the interaction with Dennis Quaid is so I'm like, this is very obvious. I get the point you're making, but it's not actually deepening it. So. Visceral experience, great. As a satire, limited.
So it's like 45 to 50 minutes in. I'm enjoying the presentation of this. Like, it's a contemporary gothic picture of Dorian Gray thing happening, right?
That's right, yeah.
So you get that, and I'm like, oh, great, cool, I get it. And then I think I understood it for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And what's left to sustain you is the body horror, which
Yeah.
is brilliantly done.
Yeah.
It's brilliantly well done, but you're
Intellectually, I'm not getting anything
intellectually,
else.
I'm only just now being shocked and horrified, and it's bloody and it's gory and it's pussy and it's all of it. It's great, but I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm done.
That's-
I'm
yeah.
not figuring out what this film has. It's a very fun
Yeah.
point about aging and being disgusted by a different version of yourself. But I'm like, I'm still waiting for the next evolution.
That's it. And I think to really make a great film, it needs to kind of tickle both. You need to have something that stimulates you intellectually and delivers the viscerality in contrast with one another. Because, to be honest, towards the end, even though I enjoyed the visceral experience, part of me was like, I can't wait for this to end because I'm not sticking around for any message.
It just gets worse.
It just gets.
There's a moment where you
progressively-
think you're done, and it's
Oh,
like, oh no.
Oh, no.
You think this is as bad as it gets?
Yeah.
No, sir. Please.
I
hold
really
my
hope
beer.
people haven't seen any spoilers for like how this film
Oh
goes.
yeah, if you didn't, you don't want to know about the ending before you watch it.
It's not scary, but it's squelchy and grotesque and brutal.
There's a fun opening where it starts with Elizabeth Sparkle getting her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame,
Yes,
and
yeah.
it shows the transition of fame and time. And it's originally set and cast in the cement, and she's standing on it having a picture taken. And as the years go by, there's trash and ketchup and rubbish and dog poo getting smiled over it, and it starts to crack and fray. And it's a nicely sort of the way they sort of use that in the ending as well to make a point. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, it's kind of fun.
I also
I also like the way they use when she goes to get the substance, it's in this back end alley of LA, down this dark corner under the thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like using it as a frame for where someone who is an addict would go to get their fix, like the levels you would go to get something that you need to fulfill a hole inside
And
you. I'm like, okay, you're using that as an
the
allegory.
ironic contrast between the depravity that one has to go through to achieve beauty.
Yes.
The extremes to achieve the
Or
other.
what's at the cost of what?
And actually, in that scene where she goes to pick up the substance for the first time, which is sort of down this dark corridor, and there's lots of corridor shots in this movie, but like I said, very Kubrickian.
Oh, totally.
But
Funky carpets.
I actually think this film would make an interesting comparison with Tar, which is another movie about someone who's a very successful woman at the turning point of her career, her relationship with a younger woman. And their interaction, and just that scene when she went to pick up that thing from the locker reminded me of that scene in Tar where she follows she follows the woman down to the and there's like the dog there,
Breaks her,
and I think actually there's something that you could actually draw parallels between two very different films, but kind of both films provocative in their own way.
I was thinking of Black Swan the entire time, but to
Yes,
me, Black
that's in there.
Swan sustains me more to its crescendo narratively.
Yes.
and it feels more complete as an
yes.
ending when that
The
film
final
ends.
line of Black Swan,
Because that is a dual personality. She's Black Swan,
and a little
White
bit of body
Swan.
horror in there,
Totally,
And
a
the,
little
la-
bit.
the
I mean,
last
she
sign
pulls
of
feathers out
the final scene, the final line of Black Swan is just like this nice little bow that kind of wraps on the whole thing, and I'm like, thank you. Whereas it's kind of lacking this, but watching Margaret Qualley in it reminded me that the other kind of trying to be provocative film that I saw her in this year was Kinds of Kindness, and I was like, I will take Substance over the Kinds of Kindness
easily.
so many times.
Like, such a boring film. I spoke to somebody who liked it the other day. I was
Get
like,
out of
really?
here.
Like, yeah, I really liked it. I was like, what? I didn't even engage. I was like, how? I just said I found it really intolerable and very boring. And I told it felt like scraps of Yanthamos.
Part of me is still in that seat. The sweat of me is still in that scene. The sweat trying to leave the cinema. Go back to our review. You understand
As
how
always,
warm
guys,
it
if you
was.
wanted to send in your thoughts, questions, concerns about the substance, you can do by writing into hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com, just like Brad did. Brad writes in and says, hello, James and George and James. Brad here from Melbourne, Australia.
Hey, g'day.
I've been listening and sincerely enjoying your wonderful podcast for some years now, and this is the first time I felt the compulsion to email in after seeing a film. Yesterday, I went to see The Substance. I went to an early screening at a not so popular cinema, so I had the luxury of enjoying the film in a cinema all to myself. While I normally love the crowd experience of a packed house, it was nice to see a private screening of such an interesting film. I really enjoyed most of The Substance. I found it visually stunning and grotesque in all the right ways. I loved the performances, and although the themes were very on the nose, I didn't mind that all too much because it did lead to a thought-provoking film that stayed with me for some time. It'll stay with you.
Oh yeah,
oh yeah,
I feel it.
yeah.
I wouldn't say it was thought provoking though.
In the beginning,
it provoked me viscerally. In a response, but I didn't come away thinking about the themes of the movie as we talked about.
Yeah. What I did find hard to overcome was the feeling that the film thought I was stupid. I think a good film makes you feel smart, makes you feel like you've worked something out without being hit over the head with it. Personally, the best example of this is Arrival, a film that gently guides you towards the end without telling you everything. Nonetheless, I felt Substance didn't trust me enough to make it there on my own, so it held my hand throughout the film. The repeated close-ups of the nurse's birthmark, the constant reminder of "you are one," the cutback, yeah, it's true, it is like reiterated, isn't it? Yeah, it's a thing if you've seen it.
This is the premise of the movie.
Yes.
Do not forget the
These
premise.
are the rules. It's like a person they can call, like, but can I not do this?
Yeah.
No, you got to do this. It'll work this way
Oh, a
now.
little bit of Mulholland Drive in there.
Yeah, like LA, and
like I said,
over the city.
I said I'd Lynchian overtones,
Yes,
but definitely, there is a. Sorry to interrupt the email.
No,
but there
no,
is that kind of. There's a very. It is hyper, like you said, surreal.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, who's Demi Moore's character, is after she's had after Margaret Qualley exists and all that stuff, she's confronted when she looks out of her apartment as the huge billboard of Margaret Qualley's face looking back at her, which is completely unrealistic, but also adds to this thing. And there's the way that it affects her own perception of herself. I think that was the most interesting part of the film, when there's how Demi Moore's Elizabeth's own sense of her own identity is being poisoned by this thing that she created. Anyway.
Yeah, totally. Nonetheless, I felt the Substance didn't trust me enough to... the other one. The cutbacks to the original explanatory video and the continued visual references to the billboard and the damaged portrait of Demi Moore just took me out of it. Yeah, that is on the list. I found myself frustrated at the constant hand-holding, and it left me feeling a little condescended by the film. I wonder if cinephiles like yourself felt the same way. Thanks again for the amazing podcast. You two make my morning commutes a joy. Keep up the great work. Sirens on my end. Bradley.
Thank you, Bradley. This next email about The Substance is from Esme, who says, "Hi, James and George. Hope you're both well. George, I saw you at the screening for The Substance, but I wasn't able to get to you for a chat." Oh, sorry, Esme. Please feel free to say hello next time. I do give off unfriendly vibes, don't I? Cool, that George is in a mood over there.
At my 30th, there's like some people who've met George before, but some people who haven't, but have nonetheless seen him on social media, and some people are like, "Oh, is George over there?" And I was like, yeah. And I was like, "Oh, I'd love to say hi, but I don't want to disturb him." And I was like, "No, go disturb him. Come say hi." "No, disturb him." I was like, "George."
I'm not... I will always talk to you. It's okay. Welcome all. Esme says, "Dying to hear what you thought of the film. I've added some of my thoughts below. Overall, I kind of liked it, but I didn't love it. I felt like it started very strong and tight, and I loved what they were saying around expectations on body image for women. It looked amazing, and the acting was great from both Margaret and Demi. I did struggle with the lack of dialogue, but at the end, the constant screaming and loud music was quite tiring after 2 hours 20. I think my main other issue is that they really over-laboured the point around body image by the end, that they didn't need to go to so extreme in what they were trying to make with their point. Keep up the great work, guys. Hopefully see you at more screens in the future."
Do you know what it is? It's like they had their baseline idea, which you could tell from the trailer, and it's like instead of doing something different, they just turned up the volume on it continuously and continually. And it's nonetheless there, and it's shocking, but it's like, I wanted the next song, not just to turn up the volume on the final chorus.
Otherwise it's like, could have been a short film.
Yeah. Bevan writes in to Pulp Kitchen Podcast, hello at pulpkitchenpodcast.com, and she says, "Hey boys, hope things are good with yous."
Ooh, what was that?
Ooh, hey there.
Was it like that sort of tone at the top?
Hope things are good with you. Continuing with my premiere attendance, I was smacked with the most unlikely double bill this week. I saw Beetlejuice, and The Substance.
Those are very different films.
Completely different. I don't really have much to say on the first. It's the latter that I really want to talk about. It's true. There isn't much to say about Beetlejuice.
I feel warmly towards it, actually. I don't feel anything, but it's just there.
So two friends the other day were like, "Oh, we're going to go see Beetlejuice. We've not seen Beetlejuice." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, you're not going to... There's very little for you there. I hope you have a good time."
Yeah, I hope you have a good time, but
it's going to be strange and weird. I must catch up with them about it. This, Bevan goes on to say, "This film has fucked me up. Truly one of the most visceral cinematic experiences I have ever had.
Yeah.
I went in completely blind." Great way to go and see it. "All I knew was that Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley were at the helm. I laughed, I cried, I nearly threw up. It was Kubrickian at times, especially with this long corridor that frequently reappears, lined with a carpet akin to that of the Overlook Hotel. This body horror was filmed with so much gore, unlike anything I've ever seen. Both the leads give phenomenal performances. The prosthetics and costuming are absolutely incredible, creating such terrifying imagery. My heart was going like the clappers for the last 40 minutes of this film. As I watched through my fingers. This film is a really interesting take on beauty and youth in the entertainment industry and how people, particularly women, are affected by this. I really feel like I need to sit with this film for a while, and when you see it, I think you'll feel the same. I cannot tell if I loved or loathed it. Anyways, look forward to hearing your thoughts and opinions on this piece. All my love, as always, Bev."
When I went to see it, my friend Amy, when she got home, she messaged me and she said, "I've just had to have a macaroni cheese, not because I was hungry, but because I wanted to be hugged from the inside."
Yes.
I was like, that's the perfect plain food,
Yeah.
but comforting.
I walked in, Tally was sitting there just on her laptop, and she's like, "Oh, you're at the cinema?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess."
Yeah.
I've just seen a really
Yeah.
fucked up film, and she's
Yeah.
like, it's called The Substance. She hadn't seen a trailer. She's like, "Explain it," and I was like, "Can I just have a minute?"
Yeah.
And I will probably, and then I explained it, and she's like, "Sounds like I'd hate it," and I was like, "It was really a lot."
I genuinely think because there was a moment where Anna was
Not in a way that I was saying it was bad. It's just that
Yeah.
when you just come out that film,
oh yeah,
that is a lot.
there was a moment that Anna was almost going to come with me, and I'm so glad she didn't.
But
because
you hated it.
I think she probably would have left. She probably would have left.
Really?
Yeah, it's just absolutely not for her. And it would have been a lot. It is a lot. If that isn't your thing with the way the film goes, I think it's a lot to expect someone to sit through 40 minutes of that towards the end.
It definitely takes out the ending of Men for body horror, disgusting
Way
stuff.
behind.
It's
way behind.
Yeah,
If you thought it makes like Requiem for a Dream look like a lovely PSA video.
yeah.
Like, please.
Yeah, it's like that for 45 minutes to an hour on and off. Well, there you go, guys. That was The Substance. We'd love to hear any more thoughts if you have them. As always, send in your thoughts, your questions, your concerns to hello@popkitchenpodcast.com.